Hey everyone, in this video we'll add the ability to submit a review. Since we haven't added any user auth into our frontend yet, we will remove the restriction to be logged in to add a review for now. We will add this back in the future when we add authentication in a later video. We'll need to handle this a little differently because of the post request instead of a get request, and we'll need to use some special things with Django core's headers since our API and our frontend are at different there are different ports on localhost, and so we'll get to that here in a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and make these changes and set up our add reviews page. Okay, so first things first, let's jump into our backend. And by the way, I already have the terminal open and running, both my front end and backend. So that's already set up and ready to go. But let's go ahead and jump into our backend API, and we'll jump into our reviews. And we'll jump into our serializers and our views. So first, let's go into our views here, and on our review set, view sets, right now we have this is authenticated or read only, and we could change this to be allow any, and this will allow, as it says, it will allow any sort of user to have access to the put or the post request. And for now, we'll keep that just to avoid the authentication issues we'll need to worry about in the future. So we'll go ahead and save that. And we're also going to go to our serializers here, and we're going to make some changes here as well. So right now we have a review read serializer and a review write serializer. On our write serializer, we're going to change this fields, and we're going to change it, instead of using the underscore all underscore syntax, we're going to change this to an array, and we'll pass in URL, title, content, stars, and business. And so these fields, if you look at our models, should match our reviews minus the user. And we need to go ahead and type that all in instead of using the underscore all to get this business field as well, so we can actually add the business to the review. And back in our models here, we add our title, our content, our stars, we skip the user, and we add the business. I skipped the user because since we're not requiring these to be logged in, there won't be a user right now. And to make this easier, I'm going to go ahead and just comment this out, so we don't have to worry about the user until we implement that later on. And so with those changes made, that should be it for our serializers and our view set. So I'm going to go ahead now and migrate those changes to the database. So I'm going to open up my backend server, which is right here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the server. I'm going to run Python 3 manage.py make migrations. And I'm going to go ahead and manage.py migrate as well to migrate those changes over. And we'll go ahead and run that server again. And now I jump inside of the API here. I go on my reviews, so my localhost 8000/reviews, and you'll see down here we have access to our HTML form to make a post or put if we were editing an object, and we're not logged in. You can see here we're not logged in here at the top. And you also notice that we have this access to this business object as well. And so on the raw data, we have a field here to set the actual business, which you wouldn't have had before without making that change to our serializer. So now this form should be ready to go for us to be able to add a review. We could add one here, but I'm going to go ahead and just wait until we get into the front end. So let's go back into our code and let's jump into the front end code. So I'll close this backend folder, open this front end, open up pages, and we'll find our business. So right now we have a business folder and a slug.js page. And that takes us to our business slug. So if I went to our actual app and I click on a business, that takes us here to localhost 3000/business/my first business, which is this business right here. But there is one issue here, and that is that we want to go ahead and put the reviews inside this URL. So we want it to be myfirstbusiness/reviews/ and then a review slug or review ID or something else for this review. And in the case of our add review page, you wanted to go to myfirstbusiness/reviews/add review. And so we'll need to change our setup a little bit to route this URL correctly. So what we can do, if we go back to our code here, and so inside of our business folder, we can create a new folder, and this will be called square bracket slug with our closing square bracket. And just like our slug page, this will go to a slug. And what we can do now, we can drag our slug page inside of, just go ahead and let's open a containing folder, and we'll drag this slug page inside of our slug folder, and then rename this to be index.js. And this should work exactly the same. So now we have our pages here, we have /business / a slug, and index.js goes just directly to that slug. So now if I jump back into my app here and I reload the page, it will give us some errors because of our imports are wrong, but it correctly goes to the correct slug page that we're trying to get to. So let's go and just fix our imports real quick. So we'll jump into our code here, jump inside of the slug page, inside of here, inside this page right here. And so what we'll need to do here is add another .. to both of these, because now instead of being one folder deep, it's now two. And so to get to our components, we get all the way out of our pages. And so that's 1, 2, and 3 gets us out here, and then we can go to our components. Go ahead and save that, come back to the app, and now it loads like it did before. So this is all working great. Let's go ahead now and add an add review page and make this button here. When we click on it, go to that page. So what we can do is inside of our slug, we can add a new folder. This will be called reviews. Now inside of reviews here, we'll go ahead and create a new file, and we'll save this as add-review.js. And make sure you name it exactly how you want it to show up in the URL, because that's how it works here in NextJS. So I'm going to call it just like that. I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's go ahead and just grab this, all of this from our index.js from our slug page. We'll copy that and paste it inside of here. And let's go ahead and just make some changes here. We'll delete our server-side props for the moment. We'll go ahead and let's fix the highlighting real quick. So go syntax, Babel, JavaScript. Okay, that looks better. We'll go ahead and remove some other things here. Let's go ahead and delete everything inside of our layout, and we'll start from scratch. Okay, so now we should have just a page here, and we'll rename this function to be add review page. Let's also clear out our props as well, since we don't have a server-side props function doing anything at the moment. Okay, there we go. Okay, now the next step is let's go ahead and build a form here to actually add a review. And so we'll use different material UI classes to do this. And so I'll put the documentation to some of this in the description below if you want to go look at it there. We're going to go ahead and first create a class or a div, and we're going to go ahead and put a header inside of that. So inside my layout here, I'm going to create a div. Inside this div here, I'm going to go ahead and make a typography component, and we'll give this a variant of h3. So do variant equals h3. And inside of here, we'll go ahead and put creating a review for, and this will be the business name, but for now we'll just go ahead and put business name, since we don't have a server-side props bring in the business name yet. We don't have access to it quite yet, so we'll put that in later. So I'll go ahead and just add a to-do right here so I don't forget. So we'll put just to-do, just so I know to add that in later. Okay. And now below this, we can go ahead and close off our div. And below this div, we can go ahead and start putting in our form input. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and just create a div and give this for now. And this will have our form class on it later. Now inside this div here, we need to go ahead and create a form control component. And inside that form control component, we'll have an input label and a select. And this will select the stars from 1 out of 5. So first things first, we'll create a form control. We'll give it a full width, make it the full width of the parent container. And for now, we'll go ahead and close that off. Inside of our form control, we're gonna go ahead and make an input label. And just like this name sounds, it will go ahead and just create a label. We'll give it an ID of stars. This label will be stars rating out of 5. Now below the input label, we'll go ahead and create a select component. We need to go ahead and add some props to this. So first things first, we'll add a label ID, set that equal to stars. And this label ID should match this ID up here. So our label ID matches our actual label ID. Now below the label ID, we'll go ahead and make another ID for this component, and this will be stars component. Below that, we'll go ahead and add a value. This will equal, for now, nothing. Or actually, what we'll do, we'll skip the value in the onChange for now. We'll need to add that in later, but since we don't have that functionality set up, we'll skip it for now. And then below that, we'll add a label here as well, and this will equal stars. And we'll go ahead and close off this select tag, just like that. And now below this, we need to pass in all of the menu items as children to the select component. So the menu item will be the actual options that this select component can choose from. So we'll go ahead and add a menu item component, give it a value. We'll give the first one a value of 1, a second one 1.5, then 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and then 5. Just all the options you could select that we give them, the choices of. So we'll go ahead and start here with just 1, and we'll close off that menu item tag. I'm going to go ahead now and copy this down, I guess like 9 times we need. So this will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that should be good. Let's go ahead and add a 0.5 to the end of the 1 here. Make this next one will be 2. This will be 2.5. This will be 3. This will be 3.5. And this will be 4. No, this will be 4. I need to put 0.5 here. So 4. This will be 4.5. And this will be 5. There we go. And those are all of our options. And now we can go ahead and close off our select and close off our form control. So we'll go ahead and close off the select and then close off the form control. Just like that. Okay, and now we'll go ahead and create 2 more form control boxes or inputs. One for the title of the review and one for the actual review contents. And so we'll go ahead and create another form control. We'll add a full width on this one as well. And we'll go ahead and inside of here, inside the form control, we'll add a text field. And we'll add some props to the text field. First things first, we'll add a label ID, and this will equal title. We will add a label, and this will equal title, again with a capital T. We'll add an ID equaling to title field, and we'll do title component to keep it the same as the other one. Below that, we'll have a value and an onChange, but for now, since we don't have that set up, we'll stop there. And we'll also add the closing tag, so a slash and then the closing element tag like that. We'll go ahead and close off this form control. Make sure you put a slash here. And we'll go ahead and copy this down one more time, and we'll make this the form content. So we'll go and just do a copy here, a paste there. Change the text field label to be comments. The label itself to be, we'll say, tell us about your experience here. And we'll add a ID of comments component. And let's go ahead and also add a multi-line. Make it so they can add multiple lines. So it's like kind of like a text box instead of just a one single input line. And we'll add a min rows, set that equal to 4 to give it some size at the start. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. And let's take a look at this now. So I come here and we'll go in here and do slash reviews. Slash reviews slash add review, of course. Okay, we need to fix our input, looks like. Yeah, let's go and fix that real quick. So back in the code here, we actually can go ahead and actually get rid of this average review as well. So we'll go ahead and just delete that. And we need to go ahead and, since we're one more folder deep, we'll need to go ahead and do one more .. to get out of all of these folders. And also, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and copy in the new import statements. So you can get this from the GitHub repo if you want to get it there. There's just a line here that imports everything from Material UI. I'm going to go and just paste that in there. That brings in our form control, our input label, menu item select, typography, all the stuff we need to build this stuff out. Let's go ahead and save that here and try this again. Okay, there we go. So now we have a select here. We can choose, and it lets us choose anywhere from 1 to 5 with 0.5 increments. We have a title field, and we have a multi-line text field where we can add multiple lines here in case they want to leave a long review. Now, obviously right now, this doesn't look very good, and that's because we haven't applied any styles to it, but we have our inputs here and they're all working. Let's do one more thing real quick. Let's add a button to actually submit this data. So we'll come down to the bottom of all of this. We have this div here that holds all of our form data. I'm going to go ahead and put this inside of this div. So right below here, I want to go ahead and make a button. This is another Material UI component. We will add a variant equaling to contained, and a color equal to primary. This should be similar to other things that we've done. And if you follow the other videos, you've already seen this in action. It's just another filled in with a color is a contain button, and we'll fill in with the primary color, which is that blue color. And finally here, we'll add the closing tag, and we'll add just, I guess, submit review as the text. Whoops. So we'll go ahead and type submit review, and we'll close off the button as well. So button like that. Save that. Okay, we'll come back here, and now there's the button. It doesn't do anything yet, but we will add that functionality here in a second. Let's go ahead and add some styles to make this look better, because this obviously does not look very good right now. So we go ahead and make this look a lot better. So what I'll do is I'll go up into our make styles, and I'll add some classes, and I'll apply these classes to different parts of the document. So first things first, we have a root class. We're going to reuse that one, and that's going to be a margin of 25 pixels. So we'll do a margin, actually we'll do a margin top of 75, that should still work, and a max width of 95, that should be fine. So now let's go ahead and apply that root style to the div around the header. So right here, I'll add a class name equal to, this will be classes.root. And once again, we need to bring the classes in, which we did right here. So we create a variable called classes instead of equal to use styles, which is this variable here that contains our make styles function that has all of our styles. And so we can access it by going classes dot whatever style name we have here, in this case root. So we go and add that, save that. Let's take a look back at our page here. And now all of a sudden, now our reviews text is now showing, and everything's pushed down below our nav bar. Okay, that looks good. Let's go and add another style. This case, we'll add a form class. So we'll add a form, and this will go around our entire form. Inside of here, we're going to go ahead and add a margin top of 30, in quotes here, 35 pixels. We're going to go ahead and add some breakpoints. So what we can do here is we can set styles based on the screen size. So on small screens, we can do one thing. Medium screens, we can do something else. Large screens, we can do something else. And the way we do this is put square brackets, theme dot breakpoints dot down, and then in parentheses here, in quotes, SM. So on small screens and smaller, do this thing. And what we want to do here is go ahead and put our colon and our curly braces and put our styles inside of here. So on small screens, we want it to be the entire width of the page. This is like a mobile, so we don't want this to be any margin here that would make it take up less than the full width because there's already limited screen space as it is. And we'll also add some padding on the left and right. So we'll add padding, and we'll do 0 for the top and bottom and 10 px for the left and right. And then down here, we can go ahead and put a comma. Below this curly brace here, we can go ahead and put another square brackets, type theme dot breakpoints dot up, and then parentheses put MD in quotes. So now on medium screens and above, so that's, just whatever this isn't covering. So everything else that this is not covering, which is medium and above, we're going to go ahead and add these styles instead. And this will be just a width of 50%. And that is it for that. And then below here, we'll put a comma and we'll add a margin. And this will be 0 auto to center this form. Let's go ahead and add this form class to our form. So which is this div that goes around the entire form. So in here, we'll add a classes, class name, I should say, equaling classes.form, just like that. We'll save that. We'll come back over here. And now our form looks much smaller and it doesn't take up the entire width of the page. Now the form is set at 50%, so it's taking up half the screen and it's centered, but our inputs are set to be full width. So they take up that entire width of that parent container, which is that form container we just created. Hopefully that makes sense. And then if we went ahead and hit F12 and made this a small screen, if I went way down here, also now it takes up the entire width of the page. It's no longer 50% because of our theme breakpoints. And it's also important to point out here that you need to have theme passed in as an argument to be able to access the breakpoints off the theme. So make sure this is set up here where you have theme added as an argument to your make styles function. Okay, let's go ahead and add one more class, which is our input class. So on all the inputs, we want to add a class and we'll call it input. And we just want to go ahead and add some margin to space it out a little bit. So we'll go ahead and add 15 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. And we'll go ahead and add that to each of our form controls. So we'll find our form control and we'll add a class name equaling classes dot input. We'll go and just copy this and paste it on all of the other form controls. So one goes there, one goes here, and one goes here. We'll save that. We'll come back here. And now everything's spaced out much better and nothing's like on top of each other anymore. And that should work. If you wanted to change these inputs, you could, but for now, we'll leave it just like this. I think this will work fine for now. We can come back later and make this look better if you want to, but for now, this is fine. Okay, but now, of course, this does nothing. I can type whatever I want and it will do absolutely nothing. It doesn't do anything yet because we haven't added that functionality yet. So let's go ahead and work on that now. So first things first, we want to go ahead and bring in use state. So up here at the top, we want to bring in from React. So I'll put it here at the top. I'll do import and then curly braces use state from React. And I want to do this because I want to go ahead and set state values for every input. So whenever they select something on the rating or on the title or the comments, I want to go ahead and save that in the state, and then when they hit submit, I'll read from those state values to submit it with the API to the database. So here at the top, let's go and add some more use state hooks. So I'll do we'll add a value for stars. This will be our stars value, and the function to change it will be set stars. This will be equal to use state. I'll set a default of, I guess, 3 is fine. Below that, I'll add another state of title, and set title will be the function used to change it. And this will be equal to use state, and the default will just be an empty string. And finally, I'll add one more piece of state called comment, and the function to change it will be set comment. And this will be equal to use state, and once again, it will be an empty string. Just like that, and we'll save that. Now, on all of our inputs, we need to go ahead and make a change. So on the select input first, we'll start by adding an on change to be able to capture this change and save it to that state value. So what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and add on change. This will equal a function with a argument of e, be an arrow function. And what we'll do here is called set stars. I'll pass e.target.value to get that current value of this input. And then we'll add a value, and this will equal whatever that stars value is. So by default, it will initially be 3, and if they change it to something else, it will be set to whatever they change it to. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on both of our text fields. So we'll add an onChange equaling to a function with a parameter of e, and this will be set title e.target.value. And we'll add a value prop as well. This will equal title. On our comment, once again, onChange equals a function with a parameter of e, set, I think we call it comment. Yes, comments, and e.target.value will be the value of that input right there. And then we'll go ahead and add a value here equal to comments, and that should be good there. We'll go ahead and save that. Okay, now let's go ahead now, just double check that our forms still work. And we're getting error. Title is not defined. Okay, so I forgot to add const in front of all of our state here. You probably caught that. I just forgot to put const here, and const here. Save that. Let's come back. And there we go. Okay, so now we should still be able to select different form inputs. Type in here just fine, and type in here just fine. Okay, it still does nothing right now because we haven't added the submit button functionality. Let's go ahead and do that right now. So when they click this button, we want to do something. So in this case, we'll add an onClick to this button. OnClick equals, and this will equal a function called submit handler. Up here at the top, above our return and below our classes here, we'll create a const submit handler equals an arrow function. And this function will first grab all of these state values. So one by one, I'm going to go ahead and just console log them to make sure we have them set correctly. So console log stars, console.log title, and console.log comments. We'll save that, and now let's go ahead and try to submit the form. I'm going to go ahead and refresh it. We'll pick for this will be whatever, hit submit. We jump into our console, get this smaller, jump into the console, and you'll see here we have all of our values being passed in right here. And another thing real quick to point out, we're getting this issue here, this warning, where label ID is not defined on the DOM element. If you look at these text fields, I added label ID to these. We don't need label ID because we don't actually have a label, input label, like we do here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just remove this label ID if it's not really necessary here, and it's not necessary up here. Now, when I go ahead and save that and refresh this page, that error should go away, or that warning, not really an error, but a warning should go away. And now I should be able to add things. It should just go ahead and log them right there, just like that. And whenever I pass in here, we'll show up over here, logged out to our console. So this is all working great. We have our values being saved correctly in the state, and we can grab them from our submit review handler whenever we click this button. Of course, now the next step is to actually make the API call to submit this to the database and save this in the database. But there's a few things we're going to have to do. I'm going to go ahead and run through everything here. It won't work yet until we make a change to our API, but I'm going to go ahead and just set up the rest of our front end here first. So the first things first, we want to go ahead and get the CSRF token from Django. And if you search Django CSRF JavaScript, there should be a function here about getting that. Let's see here, see if I can find it somewhere. Right here, so there's this get cookie, and they have this const CSRF token get cookie. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is copy all of this right here, and this will be in the link below as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just copy that. Jump back into our code here. I'm gonna go ahead and paste that above our handle submit button, or a submit handler button. So right here, I'm gonna go ahead and paste that. And we want to go ahead and move this line inside of our submit handler function. So we'll move that right down here. And so all we're doing here is this is a function that Django gives you in their docs about how to actually get the cookie, and it returns the cookie value. So there's a CSRF token cookie stored in the browser whenever you use Django. And this just grabs that cookie and returns it. And we'll need that to submit it in our form in our headers. So with Axios, you can pass in a config object and a headers object and pass in headers inside of there. And that's what we'll need to pass in the CSRF token and a few other headers as well. Let's go ahead and create that now. So I'll go ahead and do a const config equals a Django or a JavaScript object, and we'll pass in a key of headers, and this will be another object. And the first things first, you want to go ahead and accept and put application/JSON, since we're doing a post request and passing in a JSON body. And below that, we'll add a content type as well of application/JSON. And below this, we'll pass in x-CSRF token. And this will be our CSRF token, which we saved in this value right here. So we can go ahead and just put CSRF token, just like that. And also make sure we put commas at the end of these lines here. And that is it for our headers. And now we go and create the body, which will just be all of these values plus the actual business, which we haven't got yet. So we'll skip that part for now. So we'll create a body here. So do a const body. This equals, once again, an object here. And we'll add key value pairs for everything. So we could do title : title, but with ES6, we don't need to do this. We can just put title once, and JavaScript knows that it's title : title. It's the same thing. It's just an easier way to write it. And we'll go ahead and put a content key as well and set this equal to comments. Now this needs to be called content because inside of our API, if you look at that, we have a content field. It's not called comment, it's called content. So make sure we put content, which is equal to our comments value and state. And then below that, once again, we put stars, and all we need is just that, because stars : stars, or just stars once. And then we'll need to add the business as well, but we'll do that later because we don't have that functionality added quite yet. Now let's go ahead and try to make this post request, and you'll see where the issue happens. So below this body, we can go ahead and do a const res equals axios.post, and we'll pass in http : / local host : 8000 / reviews, and a post request to / reviews should create a new review. We'll pass in the body, and we'll pass in the config as well to pass in those headers we added up here. And we'll go ahead and just log out the result right here. So we'll log out res. We'll save that. Now let's go ahead and try submitting this and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and open up the network tab, refresh the page. I'm going to go and clear this out so we can see what happens just when we submit the page. We'll do for, this will be whatever, this will be whatever, hit submit. You'll see we get a network error, and we look inside of our network tab here. We have a CORS error and a failed. So let's look at our CORS error because this is what the source of this problem is. Click on the reviews there, jump into our headers here, general request headers, request payload. Everything got passed in correctly. Looks like our CSRF tokens here, content type, accept, all that stuff looks like it's correct. So the only issue is we have a CORS error. And the reason for that is because our frontend is running on localhost 3000, but our backend is running on localhost 8000. And so since we have this policy of strict origin when cross origin, it doesn't let us automatically just go there unless we mark this localhost 3000 as an acceptable origin to send requests from. That might be a little confusing. Hopefully, once we fix this, it will make more sense. What we're going to use to fix this is something called Django CORS headers. And you'll see here in GitHub, there's this Django CORS headers, and those will give you some links here of how to fix it, and also give some good resources to read about it in case you want to learn more about what CORS is and why this issue exists. So let's go ahead and follow this instruction right here to install CORS header, set the middleware, and then finally we set up the allowed origins. So first thing we'll do is we'll install it. So I'll open up my terminal. I'll stop the server here. I'll run pip install, and it's what is it? Django -CORS-headers to install that. I'm gonna go ahead and rerun the server now. Jump into my code here, and we need to add CORS headers. So I'm going to copy this as in installed apps. So I'll jump back to Sublime Text Editor here. I'll jump into my backend, go inside of my settings here, settings.py, find our installed apps, and I'll add a new line for this right here. Also going to just change this to single quotes just so it matches the rest of this file. I'm going to save that. Next, we jump back into this GitHub page, come down here, and once again, this will be in the description in case you want to get to this. We have this middleware. We need to add this CORS middleware and this common middleware. Now, one really important thing to note before we do anything here, CORS middleware should be placed as high as possible, especially before any middleware that can generate responses, such as Django's common middleware or White Noise's white noise middleware. If it's not, it will not be able to add the CORS headers to these responses. So if we jump into our project here, we need to add two things, CORS headers and Django middleware common middleware. But looking at our project here, this common middleware should already be in here. Django middleware common middleware is right here. And so we want to go ahead and put this CORS headers middleware at the very top, but especially at least above this right here. But just to be safe, I'm gonna put it right here at the very top. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this line right here. This CORS headers middleware, CORS middleware. We'll copy that. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this right here. And then once again, I'm going to change these double quotes to single quotes to match the rest of this file. And that should add the middleware we need. Now there's one more step to add here, and that is to add the actual whitelist of what is allowed and what isn't. And there's a way you can add all. I forget, you put a star or something on there. We don't want to do that here because that's just not as secure. Instead, we want to go ahead and pass in this CORS allowed origins array and then add in localhost 3000 as an acceptable origin. So we'll go ahead and we'll just copy this first line up here, come back into our code here, and we can put this anywhere. I'm gonna put it right below the middleware just to keep it kind of all in the same area. And now inside of here, we'll go ahead and add HTTP localhost 3000. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go and restart the server real quick with these new changes. And let's go ahead and try setting this request one more time and see how we do this time. So we'll refresh the page, give it a reviews, and give it a number here, hit submit. Actually, just clear this out so we can see what's going on. Hit submit, and we're getting a 500 error. So we have one more error to fix, but we do have the CORS error fixed because we no longer have a CORS type failure here. Now we can go check this 500 and see what is going on here. You called this URL via post, but the URL does not end with a slash, and you have a slash set. So it tells us right here, we got to change it to point to slash reviews with a trailing slash. So that's a very easy fix. We'll come back to our code here, jump back into our add review page, and we'll find our post request right here, and there's no trailing slash. Let's go and add the trailing slash right there. And like I said, there's some setting you could change, so you don't need that. I don't really care enough to change it. I mean, adding a slash at the end is very easy to do, so I'm not going to worry about that. Let's go ahead and refresh the page and try this again. Clear out this page here, click a review number, add a title, add a review, hit submit review, and we're getting a 400 of a bad request, and that's because business is required. So let's go ahead and add our server-side props to get our business and pass the business into our API call. So to fix this will be fairly easy to do. We'll come down here and we'll add a get server-side props. So just like we did here, I'm going to go ahead and copy this first line right here, this export async function get server-side props. And this will work very similar to how we did before. Actually, let's just copy this whole function because we're going to use some of this. Let's go and just copy this, come back to our add review page, and add it right here. So all this average review stuff we don't need. So I'll get rid of all of this. But we do want to keep this execute.get to get the business by the slug using the query and the URL. And so remove this average review and we'll get our business that way. That's all we need to do. Just grab the business, pass it as a prop here, and then we can access it up here at the top. So at the top of our function up here, we'll pass in curly braces once again, and we'll pass in business to destructure business from the props object. Now down here, first things first, and inside of our body, we can add business as an option. and we'll set the value to business to be business.url because we want to take the business object and add the URL onto the review here. We also want to go ahead and change this right here. So for business name, we'll go ahead and do business.name here to put the business name instead of just our business name text. Let's come back here. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. Since we added server-side props, we need to refresh the page. And there we go. Now we see my first business, which is the name of our business, showing up in our header text. We're going to go and pick a review number, pick a title, pick a description. Let's go and clear out this and hit submit. And there we go. We got a 201. Let's jump into our reviews and the API, refresh the page, come down here to the bottom. And there's our review, our full review with our random text we put for our title and our content, with the business attached on the business field here. So there we go. We added a review just like that using our front end. And that is our first post request. So we had to set some things up there, but hopefully now that makes sense. The cores just was not allowing us to go to different origins. So since we have 8,000 here and 3,000 here, that was that issue until we added that this whitelist here for localhost 3000. And now we should be able to make any post request using our front end to our API. We'll come back in the future and we'll list out these reviews and we'll do some other things there. And then we'll probably add in some authentication and update this to pass in probably a JSON web token. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it quite yet, but we'll probably pass in some JSON web token to actually authenticate the user and add the user onto the review as well, and require them to be logged in before they leave review as well. But that is it for this video. We'll stop here for now that we have a working form that submits a review. All the code will be in the description below, the starting and ending code, as well as some links to these different resources we use to get all this working. But that is really it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.